All right, so welcome back. We're going to start talking about different sleep disorders that you could potentially be subject to in the future or even now. So, our first one that we're going to look at is sleep paralysis or the waking nightmare. So, essentially, what's going on is you still have some of the features of REM during that sleep cycle, but it's usually when you're transitioning in or out of sleep. So, this is where you are mentally aware before your body fully wakes up. It can result in a sort of paralyzed state. So you're not acting out any of your dreams. You are not kind of physically moving around or anything like that. You're not moving, you're not speaking. It can be terrifying for some people. Frequently what's going on though is mentally you are awake and you're kind of like, what's going on right now? Some people will experience hallucinations or the sensation of breathlessness. So it causes a lot of people anxiety. Some people will talk about, seeing different things on TV screens. So if we can later on, I'll show you guys clips of a film called The Nightmare. So essentially, the nightmare is just about people who have sleep paralysis and they tend to see the same creature, which we don't necessarily know if that's, true or false. Obviously, that's up to a lot of interpretation. However, that is one thing that people tend to experience. And then this image in the back is actually an old image that was produced about sleep paralysis. So they thought it was caused by demons. That's kind of why you see the little thing on the woman's chest. So next we have sleep deprivation. So, what happens when you get less sleep than what your body needs? You get deprived. So, the less and less you get sleep, the more and more it will start to affect you. You guys can watch the Sleepless in America video. I will have that posted on Schoology for you guys. But we're going to look at chronic sleep deprivation. What happens? So, typically, a couple things that can happen. We're not going to go through every single one of these, but usually they're more irritable, they lack motivation, they have more issues with anxiety. They can't concentrate, longer reaction times. So you don't have those fast times where maybe if you are driving, someone slams on their brake, you can't really move out of that way or move out of their way sooner. You're more easily distracted, reduced energy, high blood pressure. This can actually lead to an increase in your weight and general, lowering of your health. Sleep deprivation psychosis. So some people will have actually a break from reality. They will hallucinate, they'll see things, they will believe things that aren't accurate. And again, it's linked to depression. As we talked about, whenever you guys hit that stage 3 and 4 sleep, you guys will start to see, that restorative benefit to sleep. If you're not sleeping, you're going to have aging in your skin. Your skin is not going to have that time to kind of recoup. It's going to make you look older than what you are. So you can see a lot of these other ones. These are kind of what happens when you start having sleep deprivation. So if you have deprivation, what would come next? That would be the sleep debt or the REM rebound. So what's going on there is it's a lengthening, increasing frequency and depth of rapid eye movement sleep. So if you're unable to obtain the right amount of REM sleep, then your body kind of builds up this pressure to make sure you get enough REM sleep, and you'll kind of have a sleep debt. Next is microsleep. So, microsleep is just a very short, fleeting, uncontrollable brief episode of sleep. It can last anywhere from 1 second to 10 seconds. So, typically, we are not aware if we're microsleeping. We'll just assume that we zoned out for a moment. So, if you ever had a moment where you just kind of zone out and you're like, oh, I'm back, that could be an example of microsleep. What's usually going to happen is head nodding, drooping eyelids, constant blinking, having a blank stare, difficulty concentrating. And as you can see from the video, which will also be posted on Schoology later for you guys, a lot of drivers can do this and not really be aware that they're doing it. Next, we're going to have a circadian rhythm disruption or jet lag. So if you ever traveled somewhere with a different time zone, if you've ever been on, planes and went on a long trip, you most likely have experienced jet lag. So jet lag is very temporary. It's caused by rapid travel across time zones, and it can leave you feeling fatigue, insomnia, nausea, and other symptoms because your rhythm is completely disrupted. So, with your rhythm being disrupted, That would look like, okay, I'm in Indiana right now. The sun's about to come out. I know, kind of the rhythm I'm on. I know that the sun's going to be up. I'm going to be awake. My day's going to start. Let's say we travel somewhere that's 3, 4 hours behind us, and now it's nighttime again. That can completely throw off our rhythm because remember, we are somewhat controlled by, sunlight and other factors like that. All right, so if you need to take a brain break, in your notes, you guys will see this brain break tab that says teens need 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Should schools move to a later start time, or will that do little to help the tired teen problem? So, for us, I know we are changing our hours. We are going to those earlier hours. How do you think that will impact teens? Do you think that will be better or worse? All right, next we have insomnia. So, insomnia is the inability to get to sleep, stay asleep, or get good quality of sleep. So, it can be psychological, it can be physiological. It just really depends on what's going on. So, some people, if they have a mental health issue, they may experience insomnia, it may keep them up at night. Other times, they just physically cannot go to sleep. So, most people with insomnia will spend 20 to 30 minutes falling asleep or getting back to sleep every night. Next, we have sleep apnea. So, with sleep apnea, it's going to be a chronic medical condition where the person will repeatedly stop breathing during sleep. So, this will typically last 10 seconds or more, and it will cause the oxygen levels in the blood to drop, and it will usually cause the person to wake up from their sleep. So, if you have someone who is a heavy snorer, maybe they start snoring very heavy, and then they just kind of pause and go, and sound like they're gasping, that is sleep apnea. If you guys can see, this is what happens. Is essentially that airway is blocked. Obviously, sleep apnea is a bigger issue with people who are bigger in size. However, it can affect everybody. So you can have someone who is literally 90 pounds, you know, very, very small who has sleep apnea. You can have someone who is, 400 pounds who has sleep apnea. You can have people who are, otherwise completely healthy who have it, people who are unhealthy who have it. So it's not just something, as some people believe, where it only affects older people who are bigger. It can most definitely impact people who, are healthy teenagers, even. So they will typically use this type of breathing device. It'll be hooked up to oxygen. It'll monitor, how long they're stopping breathing every night. They'll usually have this hooked up. Next, we have narcolepsy or sleep attack. So this is essentially a sleep disorder. Pause that. Where the people fall asleep immediately and they go straight into REM sleep. So that state where you're in paralysis, where everything's just kind of like ceasing to function for a minute, you're having your dreams. These people will go from just, standing and being awake to just somewhat collapsing and going into that state. It's a genetic disorder. It can be triggered by intense emotion, and it does impact a lot of people. So some people, they can't drive. They can't hold a, typical job just because they would normally fall asleep. Next, we have sleepwalking or somnambulism. So, with sleepwalking, it's purposeful movement of walking that occurs in a sleep like state. So, sleepwalkers tend to remain in deep sleep during these sleepwalking episodes. It's conditions more common in children. However, adults experience sleepwalking if they are sleep deprived. So, your typical adult is not going to sleepwalk, usually, kids will. However, if you are very sleep deprived, there's a higher chance of you sleepwalking. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of myths surrounding sleepwalking. They say things like, "Oh, don't wake them up; they'll get violent, etc." That's not the case. So, if anyone has watched Step Brothers, and you guys have seen the episodes where Dale and Brennan are just, sleepwalking, they're putting pillows in, the oven, they're doing all the crazy stuff. So, yes, you might start, putting maybe a pillow in the oven. That might be like a sign. But you're usually not going to drag a whole Christmas tree in and start yelling at people, right? Like that is just a huge, huge oversight of what sleepwalking is. When it comes to don't wake that person up. If someone needs to be woken up, wake them up. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit confused. They might be a little bit irritable because they're going from, being in that deep sleep state to being woken up by you. So they're going to be irritable just in the same sense that if you run in your parents' bedroom and start yelling at them at 5 a.m., they'd be pretty irritable. But they're not going to start getting violent towards you. They will not hit you, smack you, throw a Christmas tree at you, anything else that you saw in there, throw you down the stairs. It is literally just that they're going to be a little bit confused about where they're at, why they're there, how it happened, and kind of why you're waking them up. Next are going to be nightmares and night terrors. So nightmares are just those bad dreams that occur in REM sleep, and we'll talk later about what some people think those dreams are. But night terrors are going to be nightmares that are just elevated. So you can say nightmares on steroids if that helps you. But nightmares are just a bad dream. Night terrors is kind of that elevate, that next step up from a nightmare. So, it is a relatively rare disorder to have night terrors. Usually it's someone who experiences extreme fear. They will scream, run around during their sleep without fully waking up. Typically, this is going to impact children. So, nightmares impact everybody. It's just a bad dream, but a night terror is usually going to impact kids. And this is when kids end up, they get really fearful. Maybe they'll start crying in their sleep. They will scream, they will run. And I will tell you, it is terrifying. But night terrors are essentially just really, really bad dreams that have that physical aspect to it. So, just to share for a second, whenever my brother was younger, he's now in his 20s. When he was a little bit younger, he would sit there and we'd go to sleep. At one point, we had shared a room, and I want to say he was about 7, 8 whenever we had shared a room. He would literally wake up in the middle of the night and just start screaming. Like he would sit straight up in his bed, scream as loud as he could, and just not stop. In the morning, he had no recollection of it. He didn't remember it, but that was an example of a night terror. So it's definitely not a amazing thing to be on the other end of. It can definitely be something that's nerve wracking or anxiety inducing for other people, but it is pretty common in children. All right, so since we are on dreams, I'm just going to give you guys this little synopsis. Then you guys will have a separate video posted for dreams. But what a dream is it can include anything that's an image, a thought, or emotion expressed during sleep. We all dream. So even if you can't recall what your dream was, you're still going to have a dream. And then dreams of REM sleep are very vivid. So sometimes people confuse them with reality. There's a lot of theories on what dreams are, and we'll talk about that in the next video.